December 9th, 1775, 9 miles south of Norfolk, Virginia. For days, the forces of Governor John Murray, Earl of Dunmore, had been engaged in a standoff with a force of Virginia patriots. Now, Dunmore went on the offensive. This was the Battle of Great Bridge. Miles south of Norfolk, the Great Bridge controlled the only overland road to Norfolk from North Carolina, connected the Chesapeake Bay and Albemarle Sound, and created a natural defensive point. About 40 yards long, the Great Bridge connected two islands on the north and south bank of the southern branch of the Elizabeth River. These islands were in turn surrounded by marshland of the Great Dismal Swamp and connected to the mainland by a narrow causeway about 14 feet wide. The North Island had been fortified by Dunmore, while the Patriots, soldiers from the 2nd Virginia Regiment and Culpeper Minutemen, had built earthworks to defend the village of Great Bridge at the southern end of the causeway, below South Island. Dunmore learned that a force of North Carolina Patriots was a day's march from his position. They had artillery that would make short work of his fort. At 3 o'clock in the morning of December 9th, the 14th Regiment of Foot arrived to reinforce Dunmore. After the Virginia troops beat reveille, the British began their attack. The bridge had apparently been sabotaged, as they had to lay down planks in order to cross it. They then clashed with outposts on South Island manned by the 2nd Virginia Regiment. Those stationed at the outposts fired a few shots, then fell back. The last to withdraw was a black soldier, William Flora of Portsmouth, Virginia. Below the causeway, on the other side of the earthwork, the other Patriots initially disregarded this gunfire as a morning salute. That all changed when an adjutant yelled out, "Boys, stand to your arms!" The Virginia soldiers must have felt a great deal of nervousness upon hearing those words. They were about to get their first taste of battle, and they knew that it could potentially be their last. They took up positions and watched as Captain Charles Fordyce led his British troops across the narrow causeway, heading toward them in ranks of 6 abreast with fixed bayonets. The earthwork they stood behind must have provided some measure of reassurance. Their attackers would have to survive gunfire and scale these works before they could use those bayonets. Fordyce and those following him would have had no such reassurance out in the open. They likely felt just as nervous as those they were attempting to dislodge, though by all accounts they did not exhibit it. Their best chance was to put on a show of force to discourage their enemy from holding their position. Instead, the Patriots opened fire and Fordyce was felled. Now lacking clear leadership and knowing that the Patriots were going to stand their ground, the survivors fell back. Along the way, they were fired upon by the Culpeper Minutemen, who were in an earthwork to the west. They were protected by covering fire from their fort once they were within range of it. A later truce permitted them a chance to recover their dead, as well as those wounded who had not been captured. Colonel William Woodford, who commanded the Patriots at Great Bridge, wrote to the Virginia Convention, "This was a second Bunker's Hill affair in miniature, with this difference, that we kept our post and had only one man wounded in the hand. The battle was over in half an hour. In that time, 60 British soldiers were shot. 13 of them did not survive. Of the wounded, 17 or 18 were captured." Assessing his losses, Dunmore concluded that his position in Norfolk was no longer tenable. Rather than hold a position which could be overwhelmed with superior numbers, his forces retreated from Great Bridge at 7 o'clock that evening, leaving behind much of their supplies. Soon afterward, they boarded their ships anchored in Norfolk Harbor. Richard Kidder Meade, who was among the defenders, would recount surveying the aftermath. "I then saw the horrors of war in perfection, worse than can be imagined. 10 and 12 bullets through many, limbs broke in 2 or 3 places, brains turning out. Good God, what a sight!" In recognition of Fordyce's rank, the Patriots interred him with full military honors. In 250 years since the Battle of Great Bridge, the landscape has changed. In the mid-19th century, the Albemarle and Chesapeake Canal, linking the Elizabeth River and the North Landing River, was built. Its route was dug right through the location of the Patriot defensive positions and caused the land to be raised, the marshes to be filled in, and North and South Island to be connected to the mainland. In 2021, the American Battlefield Trust and its partners acquired and preserved 2/3 of an acre of the battlefield, and visitors to the area can learn more at the Great Bridge Battlefield and Waterways Museum. Great Bridge was to be the final battle of 1775 in Virginia. 7 months later, the engagement at Gwynn's Island off Virginia's Middle Peninsula led to Dunmore's departure from the state. The war would not return to Virginia for another 3 years.